Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel NPA Discovery, the place where we go beyond nostalgic movie scenes, celebrity headlines, and carefully constructed Hollywood images to discover the complicated human stories behind them. Today, we are examining the life of Corey Feldman. For millions of viewers, Corey remains permanently connected to the 1980s. He was the fast-talking kid in the Goonies. He appeared in Gremlins, Stand By Me, The Lost Boys, and other films that became part of an entire generation's childhood. He possessed confidence, comic timing, and an instinct for the camera that made him look as though he belonged in Hollywood before he was old enough to understand what Hollywood was. But behind that familiar face was a child working continuously, a family relationship he later described as abusive and financially exploitative, exposure to adults he alleged were dangerous, and a growing dependence on substances before he had reached adulthood. Then, when the adorable child actor became an adult, the industry that had benefited from his youth seemed far less interested in protecting his future. Corey attempted to rebuild through acting, theater, reality television, music, writing, advocacy, and documentary filmmaking. Sometimes he earned sympathy. Sometimes he generated controversy. Sometimes he appeared courageous. At other moments, his methods made people question his judgment, motives, or credibility. That contradiction is central to his story. The title of this video suggests that Corey Feldman survived Hollywood but never escaped its shadows. I agree with that description, but not because I believe every disputed allegation attached to his public campaign has been proven. They have not. Some individuals named or implicated by Feldman denied wrongdoing. Other people connected to Corey disputed parts of Feldman's account. Several claims remain unresolved, and responsible storytelling requires that uncertainty to remain visible. But there is a larger truth that does not depend on settling every disputed detail. Corey Feldman was placed inside an adult industry when he was 3 years old. He worked extensively before he could meaningfully consent to the career. Money, identity, parental approval, professional pressure, and public attention became connected before he had developed the emotional skills required to manage any of them. Whatever one concludes about his later accusations, that beginning alone deserves serious examination. Corey's life raises difficult questions. What happens when a child becomes the main source of family income? Who protects a young performer when the parents, managers, studios, and producers all benefit from the child continuing to work? Benefit from the child continuing to work. What happens when an industry praises children for acting like adults but abandons them when adult consequences arrive? And what happens when a survivor tries to expose harm, but his own public behavior has become so unpredictable that audiences begin doubting everything he says? This is not a simple story about a brave whistleblower. It is not a simple story about a fallen celebrity seeking attention. It is a story about childhood labor, alleged exploitation, addiction, damaged credibility, friendship, grief, public humiliation, and the complicated struggle to turn personal trauma into meaningful change. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone interested in the hidden history of Hollywood, and subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to continue producing thoughtful documentaries about public figures whose real lives were far more complex than their most famous roles. Now, let us return to California in the early 1970s, to a young child whose career began before he had any realistic ability to decide whether he wanted one. Corey Scott Feldman was born in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles on July 16, 1971. His father, Bob Feldman, worked in music. His mother, Sheila, worked as a cocktail waitress. Corey therefore entered a family already positioned near the edges of entertainment culture. His father's musical career reportedly included a group that used a manufactured public history, claiming an Australian background that was not authentic. That detail may seem unrelated to Corey's later life, but it introduces an important theme. Entertainment frequently rewards a compelling image before it rewards factual truth. A band creates a fictional origin because the story sounds more marketable. A child actor's hair is changed because one appearance is considered more commercially useful than another. A publicist removes inconvenient details. Corey's mother soon decided that her young son could become part of it. Feldman had promised major revelations. When the documentary arrived, many names had already circulated publicly. Viewers believed the project contained less new information than expected. This created resentment. The audience felt that anticipation had been used to sell access. Corey may have believed that placing existing claims together in one film still had value. But the promotion created expectations of unprecedented disclosure. When the product did not match those expectations, credibility weakened further. Advocacy and marketing do not combine easily. Marketing rewards suspense, dramatic promises, and exclusive revelations. Advocacy requires accuracy, survivor care, and patience. When the campaign begins sounding like entertainment promotion, the public may treat the trauma as content rather than evidence. Corey's experience demonstrates that exposing wrongdoing requires more than intensity. It requires careful documentation, legal strategy, independent corroboration, trauma-informed interviewing, and transparent handling of money. Without those foundations, the messenger becomes the story. Corey Feldman became a difficult messenger. His childhood fame made people listen. His addiction history, unusual public performances, fundraising campaigns, changing positions, and theatrical presentation made others skeptical. This created a moral challenge. Should a claim be dismissed because the speaker appears eccentric or unstable? No. Credibility should be evaluated through evidence, consistency, corroboration, and context, not aesthetic respectability. Traumatized people do not always behave calmly. Addiction and public humiliation can affect communication. At the same time, trauma does not make every statement accurate. Compassion cannot replace verification. The mature position is to do both: listen seriously. Investigate carefully. Do not mock the messenger into silence. Do not accept every allegation without evidence. This balance is less emotionally satisfying than choosing a hero or fraud. It is more responsible. Corey Feldman became a professional performer before most children understand the meaning of work. He learned to smile for cameras. He learned to repeat lines. He learned to become useful to adults. He learned that appearance could be changed for commercial value. He learned that approval increased when he booked the job. He learned that family money and personal success were connected. Before he had developed a stable identity, the industry had already created one for him. That identity was productive. The cute commercial child. The experienced horror movie actor. The fast-talking member of the adventure group. The wounded boy in Stand By Me. The vampire hunter in The Lost Boys. The industry knew how to package each version. It did not know how, or did not consider it profitable, to protect the person moving between them. Corey later alleged that people close to him abused, manipulated, or financially exploited him. Some of those allegations were denied. Some remain unresolved. One former assistant he accused was reportedly later convicted in a separate case involving a minor, adding troubling context without independently proving every part of Corey's personal account. His mother denied beating him. Charlie Sheen denied the allegation repeated by Feldman concerning Corey Haim, and Haim's mother disputed Feldman's version. These denials belong to the story. Responsible narration does not erase uncertainty because certainty would produce a stronger emotional climax. But uncertainty about individual accusations should never become an excuse to ignore the system. A preschool child should not become a household's unprotected business. A young actor should not have to seek legal emancipation to understand where his earnings went. An underage performer should not be surrounded by unsupervised adults at industry parties. A teenager visibly using substances should not receive only enough intervention to complete the film. A child should not have to determine which adult is safe while every adult benefits from his cooperation. These failures are larger than Corey Feldman. His life simply makes them visible. There is a temptation to ask whether we believe him. The better question is more precise: which claims are supported? Which remain allegations? Which were denied? Which systemic risks are visible regardless of the disputed details? This method may feel less dramatic. It is more useful. Corey's public behavior complicated his campaign. He sought millions of dollars to produce a film. He promised explosive disclosures. He connected dramatic allegations to publicity and paid screenings. He made claims of sabotage when technical problems blocked online access. Many viewers felt the final revelations did not match the expectations created by the promotion. His music project attracted ridicule. Former participants raised complaints. His changing positions confused audiences. All of this affected credibility. But credibility is not a reward given only to people who behave elegantly. A survivor does not become incapable of telling the truth because he is difficult, dramatic, addicted, ambitious, or embarrassing. At the same time, surviving harm does not make every later claim automatically true. This is the mature center we must hold. Listen without worship. Question without cruelty. Investigate without turning pain into entertainment. Hold adults accountable without abandoning evidence. And remember that a person can be both a victim of one power structure and the creator of another unhealthy structure later. Corey's greatest tragedy may not be that Hollywood stopped giving him major roles. It may be that Hollywood taught him to experience attention as evidence of existence. When he was a child, attention meant employment. Employment meant family approval and financial importance. When attention declined, he searched for new forms. Reality television. Public marriages. Music. Advocacy. Fundraising. Documentaries. Interviews. Each project said, "Look again. Listen this time. Believe that I was there. Believe that something happened. Believe that I still matter." That need should not be mocked. It should be understood. But understanding does not mean every method was wise. Attention can amplify testimony. It can also overwhelm it. When presentation becomes more dramatic than evidence, the audience remembers the spectacle and forgets the safeguarding issue. When fundraising becomes the headline, alleged perpetrators become secondary. When online ridicule becomes the story, the child labor system disappears from view. Corey repeatedly became the distraction from the problem he wanted people to examine. That is not entirely his fault. Media outlets reward personality conflict. Audiences prefer celebrity names to policy discussions. A complicated former child star is easier to debate than financial protections, independent guardians, workplace reporting structures, or criminal investigation failures. But the lesson remains. Anyone attempting to expose institutional harm must build something stronger than attention. Documentation. Independent corroboration. Clear timelines. Legal support. Financial transparency. Responsible journalism. Care for survivors. Fair treatment of accused people. Systems that do not depend on one celebrity remaining publicly credible forever. Corey's story also speaks to parents. A child may possess extraordinary talent. Talent is not permission to surrender childhood. A successful audition does not prove that continuous work is healthy. A large paycheck does not give parents ownership over the child's identity. The parent's first responsibility is not to the agent, studio, fan base, or family budget. It is to the child. Protect the money. Protect the education. Protect privacy. Ask whether the child wants to continue when no casting director is present. Make stopping possible. A career that cannot be stopped without destroying the family is no longer the child's career. It is the family's dependence. The story speaks to productions too. Do not confuse legal compliance with complete safety. A tutor on set does not replace emotional protection. A parent in the building does not guarantee that the parent is safe. A background check performed once does not excuse later warning signs. A child welfare professional should possess independence from production pressure. Private access to underage performers must be limited. Transportation, parties, coaching, wardrobe, and overnight arrangements require scrutiny. The successful film is not worth preventable harm. There is also a lesson for audiences. We participate in the culture surrounding child stars. We praise maturity. We ask children adult questions. We consume stories about their relationships, bodies, mistakes, and breakdowns. Then we act surprised when they struggle. We should stop treating children as miniature celebrities. They are children performing skilled labor. The distinction matters. The performance belongs to the audience. The child's private life does not. Corey Feldman's later years challenge another part of us, the instinct to mock visible vulnerability. His musical performance became a global joke. Perhaps the presentation was awkward. Perhaps the song was weak. Professional work can be criticized honestly. But thousands of people attacking a traumatized person's body, face, worth, and sanity is not artistic criticism. It is cruelty wearing the costume of humor. The same culture that consumed Corey as a child later consumed his humiliation as an adult. In both cases, attention generated value for everyone except the person at the center. There is a difference between saying, "This performance did not work," and saying, "This human being should be ashamed to exist publicly." We should learn the difference. Corey's relationship with Corey Haim adds another painful layer. They were friends, co-stars, competitors, products, and survivors of the same era. Their identities became commercially fused. Later, their struggles became reality entertainment. After Haim's death, Feldman continued speaking about what he believed had happened. Haim's mother challenged some of those statements. The friendship could no longer be privately repaired or clarified. Death made every disagreement permanent. We should be careful when speaking for people who are gone. Memory is not ownership. Love does not guarantee complete knowledge. Grief can sharpen truth and distort it simultaneously. Feldman may believe deeply in his account. Others may believe deeply that he is wrong. The responsible conclusion is not emotional certainty. It is honest limitation. We do not know everything. There is courage in admitting that. There is also courage in recognizing what we do know. Corey Feldman was a working child before meaningful consent was possible. He described losing control of most of his earnings. He entered adulthood with addiction and unstable support. He alleged serious abuse by adults who gained access to him. He struggled publicly for decades. He tried repeatedly to convert pain into advocacy and art. Some attempts helped. Some backfired. Some created new ethical concerns. He did not become a clean symbol of survival. Real people rarely do. We prefer survivors who speak calmly, remember perfectly, make no questionable decisions, never seek money, and remain emotionally consistent. Such expectations are unrealistic. But rejecting perfection does not mean rejecting standards. A survivor can be treated compassionately while claims are investigated rigorously. An accused person can receive fairness without the survivor being humiliated. Financial motives can be examined without assuming they disprove trauma. Contradictions can be explored without turning the interview into punishment. This is what justice requires. Corey's life should empower us not because he defeated every enemy, but because his story exposes where protection failed. We can create stronger systems. We can preserve children's earnings. We can reduce private access by unsupervised adults. We can create independent reporting channels. We can treat substance use in young performers as a safeguarding crisis rather than a production inconvenience. We can stop asking children to carry family ambition. We can stop confusing fame with well-being. And we can refuse to let one controversial messenger determine whether the entire issue deserves attention. There is one final image worth remembering. Not Corey standing on a stage while strangers mock him. Not Corey arguing with an interviewer. Not Corey promising a documentary revelation. Imagine the 3-year-old boy at his first auditions. His hair has been changed because adults believe another appearance will sell better. He is told where to stand. He is told when to smile. He performs. The adults respond. He learns the lesson. Approval comes when you become what they need. The tragedy is that he may have spent the rest of his life repeating that audition. The child actor. The rebellious teenager. The recovering addict. The two Corey's partner. The reality star. The musician. The advocate. The whistleblower. Each identity asks the audience to choose him again. Perhaps genuine healing begins when the audition ends. When a person no longer needs every stranger to approve. When testimony is offered because truth matters, not because attention guarantees existence. When art is created without requiring it to restore childhood fame. When parenthood becomes protection rather than performance. When the past is remembered without controlling every future decision. Whether Corey has reached that place is not ours to declare. His life remains his. But his story gives the rest of us a responsibility. Do not wait for another child star to collapse before asking who was protecting the child. Do not dismiss painful testimony because the speaker appears strange. Do not accept accusations solely because they are dramatic. Do not reward exploitation with nostalgia and then ridicule its consequences. Build systems capable of protecting children even when parents, studios, managers, and fans all want the show to continue. And when a former child star stands before us as a complicated adult, remember, we are not looking at a failed version of the child we loved on screen. We are looking at the person who had to survive everything outside the frame. Thank you for joining us for this examination of Corey Feldman's childhood, career, allegations, controversies, and continuing struggle to define his own story. Let us know in the comments which issue deserves the most attention: stronger financial protection for child actors, independent safeguarding on film sets, better addiction support, or more responsible investigation of abuse allegations. Please keep the conversation respectful. Serious claims should be investigated rather than sensationalized, and disputed allegations should never be presented as proven merely because they involve famous names. Please like this video, share it with someone interested in Hollywood history, and subscribe to the channel for more deeply human stories from behind the screen. And until next time, remember, talent does not cancel childhood. Money does not create consent. Fame does not prove safety. Trauma does not make a person perfect. Controversy does not make every statement false. And justice does not require us to choose between compassion and evidence. We can protect children without turning them into products. We can listen to survivors without abandoning fairness. We can demand accountability from institutions without transforming pain into entertainment. Corey Feldman spent much of his life asking the world to look at what happened beyond the camera. The most meaningful response is not another round of celebrity gossip. It is to make certain that the next child standing beneath studio lights has something Corey often appeared to lack: an adult whose first responsibility is not the performance. Not the paycheck. Not the headline. The child.